So I had a chance to set some more epoxy, and it worked out fine. Come on. So the dots came in perfect. I've got this sanded to 600 grit right now, and so it's ready to start being fretted. I also had a chance to undercut all of this joint. And so when you do dovetails or any sort of mortise, tenon joint, any sort of woodworking joint, to get a really clean outside edge, you undercut the inside edges so that you're more sure that the edges that are going to meet are the edge that you're going to see. So I had a chance to undercut all of these joints, and then I undercut these portions right here. Grab this piece. And so now the neck fits much better. Very clean fit. I'm happy with it. And so I can move on to fretting the neck. And when we get the neck in here, I also had a chance to remove a lot of this material, this extra material on the sides. And so I get a better idea of what this guitar is going to be like when we get it done. As you can see, it's hard to tell. There's a joint right here, and once that gets some finish on there and some water and everything swells and the glue gets in there, it'll disappear. So everything's coming together really nice on this guitar. Like I said, I can get back to fretting. What I also had a chance to do is start making the nut. And I'm making the nut out of a piece of staghorn from a ranch in Bandera. I got a piece of horn right here. And so on my previous builds, I've used horn from other animals. This horn is the color of bone, so it'll go really nice with this light colored telly. What I did is I cut off one of these tips, so you're going to have a higher concentration of the bone. These bones have marrow, just like any other bone, and I don't know if technically a horn is a bone. It smells like burned hair when you cut into it, and that's what bone smells like too. But I've got this blank cut out that's oversized, and I'm still messing with it. But once I get some frets in place, and I get this nut slot cut out, and I get a piece to set in there, I can run some strings through a mock setup at the top, and we'll locate the bridge down here at 25 inches. Once we get the bridge set, and we know that the action is good, and we don't need to adjust the depth of the neck, hopefully. We shouldn't. I did triple checked it, but you never know. We can start putting in where we're going to put our pickups, and we'll start doing the pick guard, and then we'll know where to locate our control cavity for the Telecaster arm. So right now, what I'm going to do, since this is sanded to 600, and I threw some water on this afternoon. Every time I sand something up that high, I make sure to add water to it a few times and then sand it back. You get more depth out of the curls that way, in my opinion, and it just gives you a better finish because the water's had time to raise the grain, and it's gotten to it's gotten to where it's as short as it's going to be. Really smooth. So I'm going to fret this, and hopefully, I probably won't get done fretting this tonight. So I'll come back with a video where we'll start fretting this, and it takes so long to cut out each notch, and you'll see in just a minute. But I might get a handful in today. So let's start with that. So I've gotten one fret in. This process really takes forever. I'm using medium Juscar nickel silver, so they're not stainless steel. What you need for fretting is a file with, a right angle tooth side. You need something to do the chamfer, which is, I'll show you in a second. So what I do first is I take my piece of fret, and I decide how wide it needs to be. I'll go ahead and just cut it. So here I've got my piece of fret. And then I take a scalpel that I've shaved on some sandpaper so that I know it's real thin. And I clean out the hole, the fret slot. There's usually lots of sawdust in here. So you clean that out real good. And I go ahead and score the slot itself. It just makes things easier. It holds the glue a little better. It grabs a little more moisture. And essentially what we're doing is we're pressing a piece of metal, let's see if you can see this, that's got a edge, almost like a T, into a slot that's slightly smaller than it. And I'm going to use some wood glue to lubricate it. And as the wood glue dries, it sucks all the moisture out and it pulls the grains together and it really holds it in there. So now that I've got this slot pretty well clean, and I can see how this is a bound fretboard, which means I've got to cut some of this part, which is called a tang, off. So I use these end nippers that I've put a flat edge on the top. And so you just come in here and cut off a portion of the tang. A little bit more. That, and on the other side. Make sure you got it. Yeah, so that worked. Then you take your file, and so now I've got to file down the face that I cut and where the tang joint, where the tang meets. I need that to be clean, or else it just won't seat properly in the fret slot. First few of these you do aren't going to be perfect, so I always start at the back end. You have to do about 4 or 5 before you start to get your mojo. But you see, this is a 20 fretboard, so I have to do this 20 times. Each one takes a couple of minutes, and there's ways to do this with like a Dremel. I've tried that, and it's faster. It's not that much faster, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. It's loud, and you got to set everything up, and it's just kind of a nightmare. This is just easier. So what I do is I lubricate the side of the fret that's going to meet the fretboard, and I just put a lot of glue in that tang area. And again, this is more of a lubricant to swell the grain of the wood around those little teeth that are in the tang. And then as the glue dries, it pulls all the moisture out, so the wood sort of hardens around that shape, and that's what holds the fret in place. This is a maple fretboard, so it's going to get bound anyway, and it has to be clear coated, so that's another layer of sealant. So some people use hammers to hammer in their frets, and I used to do that. I've got a fret hammer that I used to use. Some people use clamps, but I found I actually have more precision with my fingertips. I don't know why, but I go ahead and I set the fret where I want it. About right there. And actually, hold on. The fretware that I buy is pre-radiused, and it's pre-radiused at like 15-inch radius, and I do a 12-inch. So I put a little bit of an overbend in it before I seat it. It just helps to keep the ends down. So once I know I've got my tang in the fret slot and I'm good, I pinch in the far ends with my fingertips until I feel it seated. So now I know it's seated. And then I use a piece of hardwood, and you want to have as much solid pressure underneath. Then I just use a piece of hardwood and I roll it into place. And I get a really good contact between the fret. I can feel it with my hands. It doesn't take any extra tools. And you know, I'm not banging on it with the hammer. I don't have to get out another tool to clamp it. And you know, if the clamp comes off, or if you use a caul on a, whatever those things are called. Yeah, so that's pretty good. Just clean out as much as that as you can. And I forgot to mention, before I inlaid this, I actually chamfered the fret slot. So you take a triangle file and you run it down the seam, and you put a slight, you take the edge off of that hole, just top of it. And it helps your fret seat more closely to the fretboard. Clean up all the glue. This maple, very pretty, very lightweight, and it stains really easily. I've noticed it's picking up colors that I didn't think it would really easily. So I'm trying to get this all done in one pass, because the longer you've got to finish grade grit sanded down on these things, it's just going to grab natural oils, and the longer you let it wait, it's just not going to look the way it did, you know, when you originally did it. I like the way it looks right now, so I'm trying to get this done in a day or so. I'll probably keep this inside. I won't leave it out here in the garage where it's humid. You see now I've got 2 frets in place. So I got to do that 18 more times. You see, fretting is not the most fun. Yeah, but these look good. Then we'll come back tomorrow after the glue's hardened, and we'll use these end nippers to clip off all the ends. Then we can start to shape the neck. We'll put this down on a piece of wood with a towel over it, and I'll get a Japanese rasp out, and we'll just go at it and shape the contours of the back of the neck. We're going to do a soft C on this, and I really just kind of do that by feel. But I'm going to keep fretting. Hopefully tomorrow these will all be in, but probably not.